Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of Humanist Chat. If you saw on last week's episode, Jonathan and I stated that we would be discussing a subject about segregation and discrimination. And what brought this along in particular was anti-vaxxers claiming segregation discrimination, and how does it make people who've actually been discriminated against feel? So, yeah, Jonathan, would you like me to just read that post?
Yeah, go ahead and read the post so that the audience can see what it is that we're talking about. And you guys can go and read it for yourself too if you want to.
So there is an anti-vax nurse who made this post. It's been going around on a lot of conservative circles. But I'm going to try to paraphrase it. But it's a picture of her outside sitting at a table with an N95, a cup of yogurt, and a Slim Jim. But she says, for over 5 years, I've advocated for patients for bodily autonomy and respecting their medical choices, even if I disagree with them. Today, I was told I will no longer be able to sit inside to eat or drink during my shift. I can no longer commune in the break room with my fellow coworkers. I was told I need to sit outside in the name of health to protect vax individuals. Sorry, I thought that was the vaccine's job, but moving on. She put a smiley face there. Mind you, I'm also required to get tested every shift and need a negative test to be able to work. So if I'm negative, why am I required to sit outside? So here I am outside during my break, swollen-eyed, because I genuinely can't believe someone could make a policy like this and then actually carry it out. A policy of segregation and discrimination based on medical choice. It's not even about the V or health anymore. And Jonathan and I were discussing, we don't know what that means, the V or health. It could either be vaccine or virus. It's about politics and compliance. Will you comply, or how far can we push you until you do? I shouldn't even have to explain my choice to not receive the jab. That's between me and my doctor. I am tired. I'm tired of the constant battle of these politics that make zero sense. So here we are, 2021. Someone might as well make a sign over my table that says unvaxxed individual only. Where's the line? When is enough enough? So this person,
a lot of there.
Yeah, mind you, a white individual.
And white people can be discriminated against.
They can. Right. And actually, she is a female, so she is like, that is, don't get me wrong, that there's areas for discrimination definitely there. And I'm sure she's had to deal with issues with that. But to equate that to the struggles during the civil rights movement, where there actually was a blacks only table, a colored only table, color seating in the back.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and hopefully it was just her language that was unfortunate. But I kind of think the sentiment is to a certain extent too. And I've seen people in the media that have not that. So I should say I saw them on the media. It's not necessarily the media doing it, although they do it too. When they equate, they make these false equivalencies, like they'll harken back to they'll call anything that they don't like is like Hitler, or they'll call or they'll call anything that they think is mildly inconvenient to them, they'll call it like discrimination or segregation, when these things are not similar. Now, to a certain extent, she is being segregated, but she's being medically segregated, which is something that we do normally anyway. We isolate people to keep other people from getting infected, or we also isolate people to keep them protected. So, I mean, I understand her consternation and the issues that she has. She's upset that she does comply to a certain extent, because I thought that was interesting, the part that she talked about compliance. But she does comply to a certain extent with part of what they're mandating. So they're mandating either she take the vaccine or she get tested in order to be around patients. Partially it's for her and partially it's for the patients, because we don't want someone who has COVID around people that are vulnerable to catching COVID, so that makes perfect sense. But yeah, I have an issue with the language that she's using, as though people are discriminating against her because it's a choice that she made. This is not something, that's the thing. So all of these protected groups are not choices. These are things that people are. These are identities that society places on people that they can't rub them off. They can't decide to not be that thing anymore. So that's why we protect people. That's why we have these protected classes. So yes, people that are racial minorities are going to be racial minorities regardless, if race even existed, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
They're going to be racial minorities regardless. You have now made a choice, and that's what freedom is. And I think a lot of these people have an issue with understanding what freedom actually means. You do have the choice whether or not you get the vaccine. That's why she hasn't had the vaccine. But you don't get freedom from the consequences of not getting a vaccine. And as a healthcare professional, I mean, you would think that this person would realize that not having a vaccination against a deadly pandemic that's spreading, that we don't know everything about yet, we're going to have to take some kind of steps to keep you from being harmed and to keep other people from being harmed by you. And some of it might be inconvenient. You might have to sit outside and have your Slim Jim and yogurt. Breakfast of Champions.
It's well, and with she's actually I saw in one of her posts that like she posted afterwards. Oh, thank you for all the response. She posted a video. So apparently, I mean, obviously, she has become popular around the circles that are anti-vax. Or it's being, I mean, I saw it from just certain places I follow because I think it's information. It's important information for we as humanists. Now these and I agree. She is definitely being compelled. But we are all compelled in our daily lives.
Absolutely.
But we're talking. But you made the appropriate comparison of choice. I'm gonna put it this way, and I don't know if this is controversial, but
be controversial.
Yeah. Well, during the civil rights movement, if many of the African Americans could choose to have become white so that they don't have to be put in the back, be looked down upon.
Sure.
Do you think many of them would have chosen to?
So look, so you've touched upon something that is part of my family history. I'm, reasonably dark complected, but not my whole family is not. And I have family members that a couple are still around right now that attempted, and in some cases were fairly successful. We call it passing. So for you to be able to pass as a white person, or at least as a non-Black person. And people did this regularly. That's why it has a name, And yeah, of course people would make that choice because you don't want society, bearing its weight on you for something that you could pretend to not be.
Oh, definitely. I'm a Pakistani man. I was raised in Mississippi. I was actually born on 9/11, and after 9/11 happened, my experiences with discrimination, which was very interesting. I would have definitely, I definitely didn't want anybody to know I was growing up in a Muslim household.
Sure.
That I was born in Pakistan or my race. I used to try to pass myself as, I used to say I was Latin American, or I used to say Mexican or something like that, and that was because you just didn't want people knowing that. And even when when I was with my buddies at the gym or anything like that, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I like my close friends. I wouldn't even tell them like I was Pakistani. It was difficult, and that's just the heart. There's just so much that goes into that. When we see, like, when I see this thing, like this post like this. So my first, so like I mentioned in the last video, I had a very strong reaction to it. One of my first ones was I noticed that this is something that I've seen for a while. Not just the anti-vax, but a lot of the anti-science culture and a lot of the racist culture is where, and anti-information, where people are trying to say, well, we've been discriminated against too. Or you know what, this is the same thing that you had to go through. So don't complain. You know what, I had to sit in the back of the bus. Oh, I'm being discriminated against today. Um, one thing that I mentioned her name, Dr. Simone Gold from America's Frontline Doctors. We met, I think we talked about it in the last video, or we either talked about it before we started recording, but
Right.
the
I
lady
think it was
who,
before we recorded. Yeah.
yeah, well, one of her billboard posters is a picture of her next to Susan B. Anthony and Rosa Parks. And she's equating herself to people at these level. So when I've seen things like this, like these posts, from my experience, which is different from yours, because the Pakistani experience and the Black experience are different things,
Sure. But there are things that overlap. So.
But yeah, there's definitely things that overlap. I will definitely say this: my Black friends in Mississippi definitely had a harder time on certain areas, and I had a hard time on certain areas. So, but when I see this for me, I'm just like, I'm noticing that. What do you think about it? Do you think that you're noticing that people are trying to they're trying to be discriminated against in a weird way, or trying to portray themselves?
Victimhood. So they're, and it's funny because there's a particular political ilk that likes to say that people have a victimhood complex, but I think it's projection to a certain extent, because it just seems like a lot of these people just want to play the victim. They have a persecution complex. They want to believe that someone else is persecuting them all the time, which is strange when it's coming from people that are privileged. That's the way that I look at it. I think that these people in positions of privilege just they want to be persecuted. I think part of it is actually somewhat religious, because I think Christians have an issue with that same thing, that they, and this is generalizing, of course. I'm not saying that all Christians are like this. Maybe it's an evangelical thing, but it seems like they always talk about someone persecuting them, even though they're like the dominant religious group in the country. It just seems like they always think that somebody is doing something to them, or actually has the ability to do something to them, when they control just about everything. So I think that that's a part of it, the dominant group in a lot of circumstances. And maybe it relieves, people have like this weird group guilt that they absorb, and I don't know why we do that. Black people do this quite a bit too, but I know that the majority tends to do this a bit too, as though they're to blame personally for the historical injustices that have occurred in the country. And I think that thing where they say that, well, Irish people were enslaved too, or that that whataboutism, it kind of relieves a little bit of that guilt, when the guilt really is not something that they should be carrying anyway, because we're individuals. I was never enslaved personally, and I don't carry I don't carry the burden that an actual slave carried. There are things that have occurred up to this point that have created the racial dynamics that we have in the country now. But I don't inherit slavery, and I'm not responsible for activities of another person just because they're Black. I don't have this group guilt thing, but it seems like a lot of people in our society absorb this. And for the majority, I really think that persecution complex kind of relieves a little bit of that. And that's just me being a psychoanalyst, which I am completely unqualified to do. So,
well, we should have called my wife for that one.
Right, that was her thing. Yeah. So So she can totally debunk that. But I qualified it. That's just the way that I see it. I think that's what's actually going on.
Well,
And I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like to me.
no,
So,
actually, I agree, and I don't think you necessarily have to have the Christian, but you put a good example. Christians have that for their particular reasons of that particular persecution complex, and I think that goes into a lot of why um, that they feel the need to be the one victimized. And I actually thought that it was interesting in some anti-vax circles. It's like we're being persecuted like Christ was. It's like,
I mean,
um,
yeah, I
I
mean,
think,
whatever.
but I think the other part though is, well, you shouldn't complain because I'm going through this exact same thing. Like
Yeah,
I'm going through this. I'm going. This is like worse than the civil rights movement, or
that's a good point.
or Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to compare this to the Holocaust, like the mass mandates to
Yeah,
the Holocaust. And I know she came out and apologized. I She defended it the very first time, and
that's a very strange lady.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, and if it takes a visit to the Holocaust Museum for you to know that the vaccine mandates and the Holocaust aren't even near the same thing. Oh, sorry, no, the mask mandates and the Holocaust are nowhere near the same thing.
Not even,
Yeah,
yeah, not even remotely
you shouldn't be
close.
taken seriously.
Very
Unfortunately,
strange.
she is.
Yeah, she's a very strange lady. I've heard her say a few things, and I'm like, wow, like people elected her to be. But I mean, I guess so. Like there must be some pretty significant pockets of these conspiracy people. But
There's
some of this
definitely
stuff is so weird. It's like, I'm all for a good conspiracy. Give me one, I'll eat it up. But some of this stuff is like really bizarre. Like, how could that even? It doesn't make sense. Like, how could that be possible? So I don't know where. Yeah, like, and to be able to have such a poor. Uh, I don't have a very good filter, and I'll be honest about that. But to have such a poor filter that you'll come out and say, compare a mask mandate, a public health effort, a public health campaign, you're going to compare that to a genocide, probably the most famous genocide in the world, in world history. What the hell? And she's one of the national leaders. It's a really strange time we live in.
I mean, no, it definitely is. I mean, this is definitely just an interesting. This is an interesting period to be living in.
Yeah, hopefully they read about us in history books.
But hopefully they do. That we'll end up with a Wikipedia page sometime
I
someday.
hope so. Well, if we survive.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, I think
But
so too.
one thing though, I guess I'll also want to ask your opinion about.
Sure.
So the same people who are saying about discrimination, because I've actually brought about discrimination for being an atheist.
Mhm.
I don't believe your belief is a choice. I agree with Matt Dillahunty where it's you're either convinced of something or you're not.
Same.
But people would say well, what would you say to the person who says to us, well, you guys have a choice as far as your religion or your
So we
practice.
do so we do have a choice, but it's not the choice of what we actually believe. It's whether or not we're going to behave as though we believe something or we don't. So, I don't have any choice. If you tell me a story right now, either I'm going to believe you, you'll convince me, or you won't convince me. And if you don't convince me, I still have a choice. So I can pretend that I believed what you said, maybe, because you're my friend and I want you to feel better about it. Or I could tell you straight up, like, hey, I don't believe you, dude. And I'm not sure why you're telling me bullshit, like that type of thing. So to a certain extent, we do have a choice. We can behave a particular way, but if you have integrity and intellectual honesty, then I don't see why you would behave. Well, no, I do see reasons that you would behave in such a way as to pretend that you do believe in something, because it could be dangerous for you not to in some circumstances. But true belief, like, no, I don't have any control over that. But I don't want to discount people that say that they do, because I can't say what their experience is. I don't live behind their eyes, so I don't know what's going on in their heads. But for me personally, there's no way that, I don't have active control over whether or not I believe your statement. Either I find something convincing or I don't. I guess it's not a full dichotomy, because I might just abstain from it. I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not. That type of thing.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Supreme Court has passed laws on, religious institutions being able to fire individuals. And recently, American Atheists put up a lawsuit to the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Unfortunately, Supreme Court struck it down. And the late great Ruth Bader Ginsburg, actually, who opposed the decision, she came out and said, this law will allow now religious hospitals to fire nurses.
Sure.
Because they don't, because it goes with the ministerial exemption.
Yeah. And it is what it is. If we have these private groups anyway, in a lot of these states, they can fire people for no reason anyway. So if they pick a reason, then it kind of is what it is. I don't know what to do about that, really. And I'm not sure that that's not, so a religious institution hires someone, they probably do want someone to believe the way that they do, or at least be willing to profess that they believe the way that they do, because that's the point of the organization. So if it's like that, if that's the case, then that's just the case. I don't know if we should really even do anything about that. We have these religious institutions. I would rather not work for a religious institution, to be honest. And that's kind of like those nurses. I'm not qualified. So if you're saying that the qualification for the job is that I profess that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, or whatever religious dogma that you have, I cannot profess that. So I am not qualified to work at that place, that workplace. And honestly, I choose not to. So for the nurses, if you don't want to get vaccinated and the place that you're working at says that you need to be vaccinated to work here, then it sounds like you don't work there anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's like, why is that such a big deal? Like, do you want to force the place to allow you to work there when you don't want to follow their rules? It doesn't even really make sense to me, right?
Right.
Not a private company, but the government kind of does the same thing. It's just that they set their rules more based on constitutional rights. So in a lot of cases, they have a little more leeway as to, who's able to work in certain jobs. In other jobs, it's way more restrictive because they need you to be able to do that thing that they need you to be able to do.
I agree.
As a military member, I don't have any choices to which vaccines I take unless the military says that I have a choice.
Now, what would you say if these same laws ended up going into places like restaurants or, well, actually, I think there have been restaurants, New York, you have to show proof of vaccination, which personally I 100% support.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I do think though there needs to be, I do have a couple close friends who, well, actually just one, who actually has a real reason they can't get the vaccine.
Sure.
And I won't mention the name, but he has a real reason to get to not get the vaccine.
You should get an exemption.
There needs to be some sort of CDC card or something that could help with that, to actually a real exemption.
Yeah, that's policy though. So yeah, I agree that if you're one of the very few people that have a clinical issue where the vaccine would be more, that you can't take vaccines basically, or the vaccine would be harmful, and that's what doctors are saying, that's what medical scientists are saying, then yeah, you should have an exemption to it, because we don't want to harm you.
Oh yeah.
But a bunch of us me and you, I think we took the vaccine really early.
Oh yeah, we did.
When it first came out. Yeah, so I got mine back in December, then I got my second one in January. Perfectly fine. So it doesn't seem like it's harming me. We've done some studying on it so far. Doesn't seem like it's harming anyone. If anything, it's the opposite. So it's not unethical for government, particularly local governments, because I give them a little more leeway. Uh, for a local government to tell you, like, no, if you live here in this city, you're going to get this vaccine if you want to go to these particular types of facilities. I mean,
Like,
what kind of government do we want? Do we want a government that just completely ignores public health, or do we want one that takes public health takes public health seriously? Because I mean, that's kind of part of the point of
well,
having a government.
it's unfortunate that there are some people who would rather a government that not take public health seriously.
Okay, so how many of them are there?
I mean, probably
Right.
well, right now. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, but the thing is like they're very, but they are
You're very
people who
loud.
don't want the government to take public health seriously are serious about it. I mean, those restaurants in New York. There was a hostess that was assaulted
Oh
um,
yeah,
from and because three ladies from Texas wanted to attack her because they asked for proof of vaccination.
yeah. They got arrested.
Yeah, rightfully so.
So as a New Yorker, like, come on, Texas. Like, don't come to the city with us big old libs and start acting all crazy, okay? We let you come here and take pictures. Well, not here, there, because I'm down in Louisiana now. But let you go to New York. You take pictures of the big buildings and everything. Look at Times Square, get your little Big Apple hat and whatnot. And you don't want to live by our rules. Like, what's going on? But that's the main thing. That's the main thing to me. Like, in order to live in a society, we do give up some of our freedoms.
Right.
And I think we do get to agree, we get to vote on which freedoms we're willing to give up for whatever degree of safety or convenience or whatever reason it is that we've decided that we're going to give these freedoms up. And I don't see any other way for it to work. I don't know what it is that people want, but I think the local areas are the ones that should be making a lot of these decisions. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that's what's occurring. So the governors and a lot of these mayors are the ones who are making these decisions. And I think that the local politicians are a little bit more, what's the word? They're more receptive to the desires of the people that live in their areas, hopefully.
Hopefully. Well,
right.
Well, let me ask you this: what would you say now to, like, let's just say nurses like this, or a lot of these people who are claiming that they are being discriminated against, and who would go as far as to compare segregation, the Holocaust, and all this to their experiences? Like, what would you say to them?
You're not a member of a protected group. So, and there's a reason that you're not a member of a protected group. For the most part, these protected groups, religion is one of them, and that one is kind of a choice, but that goes back to us saying, do you choose what you believe?
Right.
You're not a member of a protected group for a reason. You have a choice, and if you make that decision, if you exercise your freedom to not take a vaccine, then there are going to be consequences to not taking the vaccine. People might not want to hang out with you. They might not want to let you in their hospital. They might not want to let you in their restaurant. So it's up to you, but I'm sure there's a bunch of anti-vaxxers that you can find. You guys can open up your own anti-vax COVID infested restaurants. Right. You guys can start up your own, COVID, clinic or whatever, where you're passing COVID to your patients. But I don't know.
Have customers. I mean, you'll have patients, I guess. I mean,
yeah. I don't get it, man. But I don't have to get it. So it's their freedom to choose what it is that they put in their body. I'm all for. She mentioned bodily autonomy, and I've mentioned that on various videos that we've done as well. That I'm a big advocate. I mean, how couldn't you be an advocate of bodily autonomy? You own your own body. So if you don't want to put something into it, we shouldn't be putting it into it for you. We should be convincing or compelling you, if we need to accept a vaccine. And if you choose not to, then I mean, what you get makes sense to a certain extent. Like we don't want to, bully these people too badly, but if we want to keep you separate from us, then there's a reason for it. And that's not segregation, that's social distancing.
Well, I 100% agree. I would say to these people, if part of me just still like has that strong reaction where I just kind of want to say, especially like to the people who didn't have to ever be called, you know, have you been
Yeah,
called the N word?
of course.
I've
Of
been
course.
called the N word, except the word "stand" right in front of
Right.
it
Oh
with
yeah.
that. And so I I just kind of want to see that, it's like for you to say that level of like you're feeling that level and you're trying to point yourself out as this hero, that's part of me is just I don't know, like for me, it just brings such a strong angry reaction just
Yeah.
because as in my particular field, well, my in the ICU nursing, I've worked with a lot of different people, and I've seen a lot of patients who've had to struggle with racial discrimination, disparity, especially in the level two trauma center, and it's just interesting to see. I just can't imagine a nurse claiming that they've been discriminated against because of being anti-vax.
I mean, I don't know. If she caught COVID and we put her in an isolation room, does she feel like we're segregating her because she caught COVID?
Right.
Because
But
we are. But that's what we're supposed to do.
but one thing I will say, I kind of wonder if she posted this similar to Simone Gold, or she is a real doctor, Dr. Simone Gold.
Mhm.
Um, if she posted it just for the fame and publicity,
Maybe.
um, and actually to the Simone
Well,
Gold
the young people call that clout chasing. Are you
one.
saying she was possibly clout chasing? Huh?
Well, it's that's a real thing,
Yeah, of course it is.
But
Of course it
one
is.
thing I do want to say about Simone Gold and her anti-vax stats and her whole thing about racism, if you have to put a picture of yourself next to Susan B. Anthony and Rosa Parks,
Mhm.
if you have to do that yourself, you are nowhere near their level
Sure.
if you have to
Sure.
do that yourself.
Sure. Other people would do it for you.
Exactly.
Well,
It's
yeah,
kind
of
of,
course she's not. Of course
yeah.
she's not. She's self-aggrandizing. I mean, but of course.
But I always say this one thing, and I tell that to everyone is, how sometimes a lot of people on the right like to use the word alpha male and call
Sure.
other people beta male. If
Yeah.
you have to call yourself an alpha male, you have to call somebody else a beta male. You are
Yeah.
not an alpha male.
No, you're not it.
Yeah.
You're
So I mean,
correct.
it's
Not it. And it's a myth anyway.
yeah.
So yeah, with the wolves and whatnot, yeah, the alpha and betas are a myth anyway. But
Right. And so for this girl kind of saying that, that I feel like more of it is just like kind of like that. It's like bids for attention in a weird way, or like,
it
to
is.
come to come across as this hero.
Yeah. That
Because
part is
and
self-aggrandizing. But who knows? Maybe she thinks of herself that way.
it's kind of interesting. Other people do think of her that way. I mean, she's on a very prominent influencers feed as a this brave, courageous nurse,
Mhm.
and who's out there. And it's kind of interesting. This guy put this courageous nurse who's out there in the quote unquote pandemic. So this guy's
Okay,
actually
good.
denied COVID, saying it's worse, no worse than the flu and everything like that. But calling this nurse courageous, this nurse obvious like, and saying like, oh, she helped out during the quote unquote pandemic. It's like you can't even really tell.
Are we are we expecting them to be like intellectually consistent?
Oh, not the least. I'm just
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but we've gone through over a year of, this. It's just really weird to me because it makes me wonder, like, how do their brains operate. Because I know that, hey, from time to time I might contradict myself. I realize that I might have different streams of thought that run into each other, streams of consciousness that run into each other, and eventually they'll diverge or they'll get together, and I'll be okay. But to be able to be so inconsistent for so long on so many things, it just seems really weird. Like the cognitive dissonance has to be like just crushing. Or is it like, do they actually believe a lot of the things that they're saying, or are they running with an agenda? I mean, I tend to think that they do believe, or a lot of them do believe a lot of this stuff. I just don't know how you can have these, you know, highly contradicting thoughts in the same brain and be okay with it. Because I always wondered what was going on with the whole vaccine thing. Like I was talking about on the previous video, last year, the right wingers seemed to be all for the vaccine because there was a right wing president in, and now you have the centrist in, and they can't stand him, so now they hate the vaccine as though they're connected to these people. It's just the strangest thing.
Definitely.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I would just hope that some of these folks, especially the ones that supposedly have some kind of a background in the scientific method, will step back for a minute. First thing, consider that you could be wrong. Step back, take a look at what's actually going on. I mean, like the doctor that you were talking about, I wonder, does she not believe that there are people in ICUs all over the place, and that the vast majority of these people are unvaccinated? And if so, then how is the vaccine an issue? I think the disease is the issue.
Well, that would be I know that would never happen, is getting Simone Gold to come on here.
Yeah, I know.
I don't.
We got to get a bigger audience.
Yeah, we have to get a big audience. I do think that the organization's kind of a little bit misleading, because they're saying America's frontline doctors. I guess they're trying to apply frontline to the pandemic, but I think most of them are ophthalmologists. And then ophthalmologists are great professionals and everything, but they're eye doctors. Like,
wait a minute, why? Can you think of a reason why they just happen to be ophthalmologists?
I mean, I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying the majority of them, from what I've.
That's freaking weird.
Yeah.
But why specifically ophthalmologists?
I have no idea.
So that's a weird thing. That's very interesting. I'm definitely looking into this group now.
Well, if any of you guys know Dr. Gold or anybody from America's Frontline Doctors, please ask them to send me an email at ovais@humanisonhealthcare.com. Or if you want, Jonathan, we can put your Humanist Healthcare email as well.
No, leave me alone. Telling people to leave me alone. They can talk to you. I'll back you up if it's necessary.
Sounds good, my friend. So for this episode, one thing that we'd like everyone to do, tell me what you think, as far as, we'd love to hear your opinion as far as what you think about racism and comparing discrimination, segregation, whatever you want to call it, to anti-vax individuals or vaccine-resistant individuals, to discrimination, segregation for race, class, ethnicity, gender. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. We welcome both opinions. Please comment, and like I said, we may have you on the show. Please follow us.
Especially if you disagree with us. So if you disagree with something that I or Ovais said, then please, send an email and let us know. And you're much more likely to end up chatting with us if you disagree, because I actually like to be proven wrong. So if you, because it makes us smarter. So if you have good points that you want to share on the opposite side, please, send a message in to us.
Definitely. I might, and I'm sure a lot of you are probably wanted to see the post of that nurse. I'm actually going to consider posting it, just because one of our videos in the past had been taken down. I might put it on Facebook.
Yeah, put it on the Humanist and Healthcare group, right?
Yeah, I'll put it on the Humanist and Healthcare group in case you guys just want to see this particular nurse. I'll put it right underneath the ECMO request. But if anybody wants to donate, please donate to our PayPal link. We would love to have you donate to us. We are a new organization. We're getting our foot off the ground. We're hoping to do great things. We're sure we will, and we want to have you be a part of it.
Yeah, we have some really outstanding people that have already joined up with us, and it would be really great if we had some outstanding resources that we could use to do big things, because we plan on doing some humanitarian work and just spreading the message. There's nothing more humanist than healthcare, right?
Definitely. And please direct people to our website. Whether you're a healthcare worker or a non-healthcare worker, you can go to our website, www.humanistinhealthcare.com, and you can join our organization. You do not have to be a healthcare worker. You just have to be a humanist, agree with our values, and we would love to have you. Please join us on Facebook and on Meetup. Our Facebook group has a lot of good discussion. We have a private group and a public page. And also, please see our events on Meetup. We have some pretty fun events like our Drinking Skeptically, and we have a Death Cafe run by our awesome director of communications, Renee Reeve. She just does amazing stuff, and it's just, the discussions get so interesting and so deep.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, do you have anything else you wanted to add, Jonathan?
No, I have nothing else to say now. I'm gonna go eat dinner or something.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, until next time, guys.